cars we've got gathered here are a real reflection of how much fast cars have changed.
So in the past, when you think of four-wheel drive cars, you've probably thought of pure off-roaders or maybe rally cars, but nowadays it's almost becoming the norm in the performance car world. More and more cars are now driving all four wheels.
And even up to stuff like this. Full-blown hybrid hypercars. But is four-wheel drive making performance cars boring and dull? Or is it taking them to a whole new level? To find out, we've pulled together a group of the ultimate four-wheel drive performance cars. And yes, that means we've got a 2.5-ton Range Rover lined up alongside a V12 Lambo. We've also got a big GT, a sports saloon, 3 sports cars as well, and the amazing Anglesey circuit to find out what they do. This should be a lot of fun.
I think four-wheel drive, to me, used to mean something that was almost quite steady, unless it was a homologation special like an Impreza or an Evo or an Audi Quattro that began the whole revolution. They were very much cars engineered for stability and traction above all else, so you would always be drawn to the sharper, more aggressive, slightly more challenging cars to drive. But I think now four-wheel drive has become more than just an engineering exercise. It's the dynamics engineers that have got a stronger hand in how the cars are developed. So it's the technologies used to make the car more agile and quicker and sharper. So you get the best of both worlds now, I think.
So the RS3, I mean, we've had an RS3 here at Anglesey before. I loved it then, and this one is just as exciting. Amazing engine, of course, 5 cylinders, 394 horsepower, so loads of guts, loads of poke. But it's really how the chassis works and how the four-wheel drive system works that marks this out over the old model. And I can't imagine that car feeling the same and quite as thrilling if it was just rear drive. I think part of its character is that it claws at the road and it oversteers a bit and jumps around. It's like it's trying to fight the surface to get as much performance out of it. It feels amazing on the road.
Audi RS models always associated with all-wheel drive, and the RS3 with this unique 5-cylinder, 2.5-litre engine, which we'll hear now. There we go. It still sounds great. It still sounds like it. The spirit of the Quattro lives on. Now, this car's always been about traction and all-weather performance, but the nice thing about this generation of the car is that it has this very clever torque splitter rear axle, and the thing that really makes that this car's secret weapon is that it can send 100% of the torque, in theory, if it wants to the outside wheel. It's only in very rare situations it does that, or in drift mode, which we'll come on to in a moment. And it helps the car yaw, helps it get into the corner, and helps counteract understeer, helps give it a much more positive feel than we maybe got used to in the older RS3. It's also really neat because it can help to stabilize the car if you're cornering really hard. So if I go into this corner here and get a little bit loose, then it will, there we go, it will kind of move the torque to the inside wheel to help drag the car straight. It's a really, really neat, clever system. And it makes this one of the more positive feeling fast Audis I've driven.
I'm a big fan of the RS3. It's an interesting car. It has traits of a front-wheel drive car and traits of a rear-wheel drive car. So your driver's brain is fully engaged in how to get the best from it, and that is something that you can play with the dynamic mode. So you can keep it as a bit of a traction monster and not use the torque rear to inject a bit of fun and playfulness, or you can use that torque rear technology to change the balance of the car and make it more of a challenge to drive, but more fun at the same time. So I think that, combined with the engine, which is fantastic, and the gearbox, you know, every car we've got here is a paddle shift of some description, but certainly in this, it just adds to the experience. So as a package, I mean, it's a super cool little car, isn't it?
the real party piece of this car is what's called torque rear mode. So in this mode, you're only really supposed to use it on a racetrack for good reason. But in torque rear mode, it can send pretty much, well, not pretty much, exactly 100% of the torque to the outside rear wheel on turn-in to help unstick the back, and then it will let you put the car into a slide. There we go, and the other way. There we go. It's a really neat trick, and it's something that other performance cars don't really do. It's brilliant. It's not only innovative and clever, but it gives the car a bit of a USP. And this is not to say that other kind of super hatches are not really agile too. The AMG A45 can do all sorts of clever stuff. But it's something different, something very clever. And for a company that's synonymous with both four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, it shows that it's still doing fun, interesting things. And I am having a ball around this Anglesey circuit. It's a shame it's so expensive. I mean, when this generation RS3 came out, it was a 50-something thousand pound car. It's now more than 60,000. That's a fast corner to be doing that. This car is way more fun than I remember. It's brilliant. Well done, Audi Sport.
The M4, we've got it in CS spec, but the M4 as a car is really, I think, what sowed the seed for this test, because suddenly BMW had applied their kind of dynamic DNA and thinking to a four-wheel drive system. So, as we all know, BMW, when you think of the brand and their high-performance cars, it's always rear-wheel drive. I think they're very protective of those genetics, and they know that that's the purity of their motorsport heritage. So the heart of the M4 CS is the familiar twin-turbo straight-six engine that's mated to the xDrive system, and as part of that system you've got an MEDIF, so locking differential. It will send 100% of everything it's got to the rear wheels in that particular mode, and then on top of that you have this funky variable traction control system, so you can be completely free or you can set some limits and drive within those. So it's a really interesting and adaptable four-wheel drive system.
If there's one car here that feels like it really, really benefits from being four-wheel drive, it's the M4 CS. This thing is a bit of an animal. So we're on cup tyres, and the chassis is really aggressive, really responsive. But this four-wheel drive sport setting, which is a bit more rear biased than the normal four-wheel drive setting, it just gives you an awesome ability to get on the throttle early and get the car neutralized. It still wants to bite you a little bit, but you're going forwards at the same time. It's really exciting. Wow, and it lets you do that. It kind of balances you on the edge where you don't feel like the car's gonna completely swap ends, but it neutralizes and you can still play with it in this MDM setting. Right, if we go everything off here, now we're still in four-wheel drive sport, but with everything switched off. And yeah, it feels very rear driven. So we're in second gear here, but it still drives you forwards. Oh, wow. This is up there with one of the best systems in a performance car. It just gives you options, but doesn't punish you. Look, we're driving forwards here. Just on the edge, playing with it on the throttle. Man, this thing's impressive.
On the track, it's an interesting thing because in some ways it's really spiky, especially if you're in two-wheel drive mode. You really need to have had your Weetabix that morning to be on top of it. But equally, if you do use it in four-wheel drive mode, it's got loads of traction. Weirdly, I actually enjoyed it most in four-wheel drive sport rather than rear-wheel drive because it's so rear biased. If you drove it, you know, without someone telling you first, I think 80% of the time you'd believe it was just a rear-wheel drive car. But if you do get into a big slide or you're in kind of slippy conditions, it just helps you out at the front when you need it to just kind of help drag the car straight.
And it's one of those cars, I mean, I got in this morning and it was super spiky. Wasn't getting on with it really. Didn't have much feel of where the grip was. But the harder you push, the more you learn to trust it, the more you start to work in that really sweet zone. And it's so quick as well. And of course in this car you can demonstrate exactly how helpful that four-wheel drive system is. So we can go two-wheel drive here. And I won't provoke the car now, I'll just try to drive smoothly out of the corner. Pick up the throttle, and it's gone. Just like that over a damp patch. Out of here, really smooth, build, 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 and it's gone again. And it's still going. Jesus. Wow. If this thing was purely two-wheel drive, I don't think I'd be enjoying it as much, because it is a right handful in these conditions. I think on a fully dry circuit, with a bit more ambient temperature, obviously it'd be hooking up a bit better, but right now, that's 80 miles an hour and it's spinning up. Oh, it's such a thrill though. It is such a thrill. Not as delicate as the 911, but I think more intuitive and more aggressive than the AMG, but just as exciting as anything here, apart from maybe the Lambo, which we'll get to later.
The AMG 63, the predecessor to this car, was a resolutely rear-wheel drive sports car, sort of conceived as AMG's rival to the 911. This new generation car has gone four-wheel drive, even though this particular model still sticks with just the 4-litre bi-turbo V8, so it's a little under 580 horsepower. The four-wheel drive system actually is quite similar to the M4 in the way it works. So it will be up to 50-50 front to rear split, but it will send everything to the rear wheels. It's a bit of a handful, but it's a lot of fun. As you can probably hear, we're in the AMG GT 63 4MATIC Plus Ultimate, crazy name, and it's a very different car from its predecessor, largely because of the four-wheel drive. The original GT was very much a rear-wheel drive sports car. This is clearly the sports car, but they've added four-wheel drive, which changes the character of the car and its range of capabilities. I'm being chased by the Porsche.
We decided to bring the Porsche 911 Carrera 4 GTS to this test because four-wheel drive 911s have been around for decades now. They were one of the first sports car companies to experiment with four-wheel drive back in the 80s, and it's been a fixture in the 911 range since the end of that decade. This car is interesting because it's one of the first, well, it's the first mainstream 911 to go hybrids, and even though it doesn't drive the wheels with the electric power, it's still a big part of its character and the way it makes its performance. It's kind of a rear-wheel drive plus car in a way, so it's always driving the rear axle and then it brings the front in when it needs to, which is similar to the AMG as well in that respect. A bit like the AMG, got a dicky ahead of me in the Mercedes. This car's rear-wheel drive most of the time, but then there's a transfer case off the gearbox and a prop taking drive to the front wheels, and that's kind of called upon when needed. So it's kind of rear-wheel drive plus, if you like. And the really nice thing about it is, as with most 911s, you just kind of know where you are all the time. You feel so at home in this thing after just a couple of corners. It's pretty slippery out here. That's the thing about four-wheel drive. A lot of people assume it just gives you more grip all round, but that's not the case. It's all about traction. And there we go. It's sending power to the front, dragging itself out the corner. So there aren't a whole load of modes in this car. Everything's controlled from this little kind of Manatino, I guess, little rotary dial on the wheel. And you've got the usual modes. You've got Sport, Sport Plus. So let's start in the middle. We'll start in Sport. This thing is quick. It's funny because you always think of the 911 as being a kind of junior car rather than a supercar. But this thing is really, really fast. Porsche says this new hybrid GTS is as quick as the old 991 GT3, and that feels completely believable. The way it kind of pulls through the gears is pretty relentless. Dickie's just got the Mercedes moving in front of us.
We're driving with all the ESC off because we need to do that to step into the drift mode, which this car has, which you can do on the fly. So at the moment, this is in four-wheel drive, not drift mode, and you can feel it fighting itself, but it generates so much traction. Oh, it's a lovely feeling, just the way the car pivots and then will slide from the rear, but then drag itself through the corners. So you're sliding, but you're generating so much propulsion. It's really impressive and actually highly addictive. We'll let James past.
So the Porsche and Merc, I mean, they're both new age sports cars that have taken a big step in terms of tech over their predecessors, and the way they go about their business is completely different from one another. So whereas the 911 still feels quite natural and you wouldn't actually know that all that tech is kind of underpinning it, the AMG GT, you sense it fighting itself a little bit at times. It's really quick and really capable, amazing traction, you can play with it and get it moving around a bit, but it's just, yeah, a bit of corruption in the driving experience, I feel. And yeah, the 911, you just get in it straight after the Merc and it gives you confidence, and you've got great steering feel. You can turn it in and drive on the limit straight away, whereas the Merc, you've got to feel your way into it a bit more and kind of work out how it's working with the four-wheel drive, how the torque split works, and then drive to that.
It's so funny watching the AMG ahead because I always think of AMGs, particularly the GT, as being as rear-wheel drive as a car can be. But it's now four-wheel drive, which is quite a strange feeling. It's got these lovely snappy downshifts from the gearbox. It's a new dual clutch unit. So let's put our foot down out of here. Yeah, it just grips and goes. It's a car that can be playful, but in conditions like this, you just want to lap smoothly and neatly. Feel where the grip is. And this car just gives you so much confidence, and surely one of the things you want if you're buying a four-wheel drive performance car is confidence. So much traction. I mean, with 911s, with the engine slung out the back, there's huge rear traction anyway. It's a bit like you're on Caterpillar tracks to start with. So you might argue it doesn't need to be four-wheel drive at all, but it does bring a whole new skill set to the car.
GT63 is fundamentally a rear drive car which will then send power to the front axle. But there is a drift mode which sends a lot more to the rear and makes it behave much more like a rear-wheel drive car. All you do is pull back on both paddles. But then immediately in rear-wheel drive, you can see how much it's ridiculous. As a graphic illustration of what this car is actually dealing with when it's not in four-wheel drive. It's a lot of fun, but you're going at literally half the speed through the corners. See the Porsches just walking away from us because of all the oversteer. I have to say, for all the drama of the drift mode, I'm having a lot more fun, I would say, in four-wheel drive. It's more of a challenge because you're carrying a lot more speed through the corners and it will still oversteer. Oh, that is fantastic! Wow, what a cool car. I think the 911 size makes it more suited to a track than this AMG, which is almost 1900 kilos, which is a hell of a lot of weight. But blimey, it's fun.
So the previous generation Bentley Continental GT Speed was a bit of a kind of wake-up call that the Continental could be a rewarding driver's car as well. Even though it's a really big, heavy luxury car, it was able to be playful and fun to drive as well. And this new hybrid model has carried that on. It's four-wheel drive, but it can send 100% of all the engine's power and torque to the rear axle if it wants to, or when it needs to. And it's got a ELSD at the back as well, which combined with four-wheel steering and active anti-roll control, it's a really high-tech car that can feel a lot smaller and lighter than it really is. And four-wheel drive is a big part of that.
So, in the big barge. But what Bentley have been able to do with this big barge is so impressive. Wow. I mean, obviously, after the others, it feels enormous. 2.4 tons, but we have got 771 horsepower. And yes, it does not feel at home in any way on a circuit, but you've got rear steer, you've got active roll control, air suspension, and it's all designed to make this car handle when it really shouldn't be. And it pulls really hard. And I think because it's so big and generally quite secure, it gives you loads of confidence. I mean, if you step out of the M4, which is on cup tyres, and straight into this, you feel like a superhero. You can just push so hard. And that's what the Bentley's about, really. It's not about sliding it around, it's about security, but with a bit of adjustability when you want it. Like now, if you come out of a corner, it just fires you forward. Generally, for a big car, 2.4 tons, hybrid, with all this tech, you just get in and it gives you confidence to just drive it quite hard. It feels a bit wrong to do it, but it's got the capability.
Yeah, the Bentley. With the Range Rover, one of the least likely cars to be amongst this company, but it's a really fun car actually. You never get away from the sense of mass and size, but what you can make the car do is totally at odds with a car of that weight and suppleness and comfort. It's actually quite a playful thing, and because it will send 100% of the power to the rear, again that seems quite a hardcore play on Bentley's part, but it suddenly transformed what was, you know, quite a plush bit of a boat Conti could be. This is all of the luxury is still there, but there's a sports car in there, and you can do ridiculous things in it. So I love the fact that they've done that, and it has that capability, and it's been great fun amongst the cars that we've got here.
And I think four-wheel drive really plays in to what the Bentley's all about, which is not track work, but daily usability. Because it makes the car so secure. You can deploy that 771 horsepower and it will just pull. It won't surprise you, it won't bite. And I've found actually, when you're in the sport mode like we are now, that's when you start to get more adjustability. But in the normal modes, the rear end is absolutely planted. There you go, just pure traction. I like this thing. You sense that it's really trying hard to do what you want it to do on a track. And to a large extent, it does. But it's probably time to put those brakes and tyres out of their misery. So obviously when you think of four-wheel drive, you think of SUVs and off-roaders and that kind of thing. And the Range Rover Sport SV is that concept taken to the extreme. So it's made to perform like a sports car on a track, which of course it never can do because it's 2.5 tons, but there's loads of tech in it to kind of disguise that weight and make it drive properly. So it's got hydraulically linked suspension, it's got active dampers, it's got air suspension as well. So there's loads of kit underneath it. And obviously seeing that kind of car next to the Lambo on a track, completely different concept but still four-wheel drive, is bizarre and hilarious.
The Lamborghini is the star of the test in so many ways, isn't it? There's the V12 engine, which everyone falls in love with. It's combined with hybrid now, and the hybrid element has created a very different kind of all-wheel drive Lamborghini. They've had all-wheel drive models for decades now, but nothing ever like this. It's the only car that doesn't have nuts and bolts connection between the engine and the front and the rear axle. It's just noughts and ones blowing between the ECU and the front axle and matching all that to the rear. So it's a spectacular feat of engineering. I think if you've got a Range Rover and a Lamborghini, you're going to have a go, aren't you? It's two complete polar opposites to the test. They kind of bookend the test we're doing and the whole sphere of fast cars that we've been looking at.
So this is the state of play of modern four-wheel drive performance cars. We've got big SUVs like this and stuff like the Lamborghini, which is chasing me at the moment.
Lamborghinis have been four-wheel drive for decades now, but they've never been like this car. In fact, there's nothing in our all-wheel drive test like this car because it's the only one to not have a physical prop shaft connection. Yusuf. Prop shaft connecting the engine to the front wheels. It's purely through the electric motors at the front, which combine with the V12 and a third electric motor at the rear to give you the full 1,000 horsepower. It's an engineer's dream, really, in terms of what they've been able to incorporate. It's got four-wheel steer to help the car rotate into the corner. It's got torque vectoring across the front axles to help the car rotate. And in some ways, the all-wheel drive car that it reminds me of is an R8 in so much as the R8 never really felt like a four-wheel drive car. The balance always felt quite natural, and the Revuelto is the same. We're currently in sport mode, which is a kind of middling mode and is the most playful. The next step up is Corsa, and that is purely designed to maximise traction and keep the car more neutral. So yeah, this is the one where you can enjoy the balance. There's still some wheels in the air on that Range Rover. That's hilarious. Yeah, you can play with the throttle, but with the help of some ESP, just to soften off the rough edges of your driving. Look at that Range Rover.
So the SV, I mean, this is definitely the most capable Range Rover there's ever been. Maybe not the most capable SUV there is, but I mean, we've got what they call a 6D dynamic controller, hydraulically cross-linked suspension, adjustable roll bars. It's got all the kit and it jumps around a bit. So this thing, we've got an E-diff at the back and it can send up to 80% of torque to the back wheels, but I'm not finding it super throttle adjustable like some other cars here. So there, look, we've got a bit of understeer, and only towards the exit, it kind of neutralises a bit. It's so weird to be sat so high as well, and looking at a Lamborghini in my mirrors, braking into a hairpin in a Range Rover.
We drove this car on the road last year and it was super impressive for the way it feels, smaller and more agile and more responsive than big V12 flagship Lambos ever have. And on track, that is just magnified and amplified massively.
I mean, you couldn't have two more different cars than the Range Rover SV and the Lamborghini Revuelto. The Range Rover's it's almost an outlier in the luxury car world in a way, because it's an SUV and it's huge and it has an enormous curb weight, but it's also available with carbon fibre wheels and carbon composite brakes and really soft, sporty, almost track-focused tyres. But it's also got the latest active chassis tech, 6D tech as it's become known, with all this not only anti-roll control but pitch control as well. And the way that works with the four-wheel drive system in this new SV mode makes it probably the most playful full-size, or almost full-size, Range Rover that there's ever been. The Lamborghini really blew my mind. I was expecting it to be good, but the way it gets into a corner is amazing. It's helped by four-wheel steer and all the torque vectoring stuff we've mentioned before, but I don't think I've ever driven a V12 Lamborghini that turns in so keenly, gets out of a corner so cleanly or so playfully, depending on what mode you're in. And the fact that going hybrid hasn't diluted any of its character, it still feels like such a special thing.
To be fair, I mean, the kind of speed this is pulling out of the circuit, it's quite impressive. All right, let's focus on being smooth now. There we go, use the torque on the way out. But this is what we're dealing with here. Completely different concepts of four-wheel drive. Completely different type of performance car. In this, I mean, it's four-wheel drive to give it some level of off-road ability. I'm not sure how often you take it off-road with those massive carbon wheels. And the Lambo, obviously with all that power, it needs support, it needs a way of putting it all down.
I'll get past the Range Rover before he has a crash. Oh. I should also say that in sport you only get 894 horsepower or something. You don't get the full fat 1,000 odd horsepower. That is uncannily good. The way it just can be played on the throttle.
That thing is squirming around everywhere. He's gonna lob it in. Whoa, we're getting a bit sideways.
Jeez, it gathers speed between the corners like you would not believe. You could actually do with a little bit more front end bite. But I think that would make the car too much of a handful the way it's configured, because it would have too much rotation. This is just about perfect. Right, deep breath. Corsa, which you still have some ESC, but we'll go straight to ESC off, I think, if we can. There's definitely a sense of trepidation when you know you have no ESC and you've got another 100 and odd horsepower to play with. You can definitely feel there's more front end drive than there is in sport. It just seems to find more bite and less understeer. Here we go. It just goes from 80 or 90 to 120, 130 in the blink of an eye. It's such a fabulous thing. Wow, that's fierce. And you can just rotate it on the brakes. The trick then is to pick it up on the throttle and balance it without coming too far out of the throttle. If you do, then the sensors in the car try and neutralise the balance of the car and it straightens itself out a little bit, which isn't necessarily what you want. But yeah, holy moly, the Revuelto is an absolute revelation in terms of what you can do with what is a big, heavy supercar with immense amounts of power. There we go, there we go, there we go. Woo! Deep breath and relax. What a thing. What a bloody car. I think we came here with a sense of what an all-wheel drive high-performance car was, but I think we're leaving with, certainly with more intimate acquaintance and knowledge of all of these cars, but the wider sense is that all-wheel drive is definitely here to stay. It's only going to get sharper and more precise and more tunable through the configurable settings in the car. It's quite an optimistic outlook, I think. If hybrid is the next phase across all the cars that we love, and if four-wheel drive comes with that, then I think we've got a lot to look forward to.
The car that I've gravitated towards the most, had the most fun in, is actually the 911, just because there are no modes to play with and it kind of just knows what you want to do with it at all times. If you want to be neat and tidy and be fast with it, it gives you exactly that. And if you want to mess about and have a play, then it just molds to your driving style. And I really enjoyed that car. And then I got in the Lambo and it just completely blew me away. And not just because of the noise and the speed, because a Lamborghini is always going to have that, but just the raw excitement and how you just have these amazing moments in it where you're revving it out and it's just on the limit and you're dancing with the car. It's kind of everything you'd hope a Lamborghini was like to drive as a kid. Yeah, it's a wicked car.
We're always going to love rear-wheel drive cars at Evo because that's the purest form of driving that there is. But every single one of the cars here today has shown that with the latest advances in tech, four-wheel drive is more nuanced and more rewarding than it's ever been. And no car demonstrates that better than this incredible Lamborghini Revuelto.